Hi, welcome to this still life, a basic still life tutorial. And whoops. Um, so this is week 5, and we're going to be this is step 1, and we're not going to be shading yet. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be picking simple objects around your house. So you want to think about simple shapes like bottles, cups, jugs, books, boxes, vases, or pots. And you're going to have a minimum of 4 objects and no more than 6 if you want to have it a little more complex. You're going to be placing your objects in a grouping, and you're making sure many of the objects are overlapping in the front and in the front and behind one another. Okay, so and we'll be talking about this throughout the video, but again, no shading on this phase. You're going to be starting with graphite, 2B graphite pencils, using the Strathmore drawing pad. You're going to be leaving any measurement lines, and you're going to be photographing both the still life and the drawing of the still life and then merging those. And then I'm going to be posting critiques. So I've got a photograph of my still life I've set up to start. And, you know, we're going to talk about these lines in a moment, but before we even do that, I just want to talk about gesture again. We talked about it in, we talked about it with, okay, we got rid of that. When we were doing our quick gesture assignment, I'm going to go back to view my layers because I do need to have my layers. But this is a Giacometti drawing, and this is a really quick gesture drawing. And that's what we're going to be working on in the very first step of this. And then we're going to be kind of mapping out the measurements. So that's going to be the next step. That's why we're kind of going step by step in this class in terms of different aspects of observational drawing in order to really practice and to keep getting better and fine-tuning whatever level you're at. When I do gesture drawings, I feel like I keep getting better every time. So that is one example. This is another example. Now this is done in a pen, and graphite is very hard to photograph, FYI. So you want to make sure you have really nice lighting. And again, I have a whole series of presentation tutorials that you can look at, and you can always ask me questions, and you can manipulate things in the software a little bit, but you do want to try to have some good lighting so that you can photograph graphite well. Again, quick gesture here. That's what we're going for in the very beginning. This has a little bit of shading. We're not going for that yet. The other thing we're going to be thinking about is, let's see here. We're going to be thinking about kind of the hierarchy of the objects in our still life. And this is we have another assignment coming up, a complex still life after this. So this is all going to apply. So this might be a tutorial you go back to later for that assignment if you need a little refresher on how to start out with your still life drawing. So we're thinking about, okay, which object is the tallest and which one appears closer to you as the viewer. You know, how are they overlapping? And proportion. You know, how are the objects in proportion to one another? Which object is larger and which is smaller? And the thing about that is when an object is further back, it tends to appear smaller than the object in the foreground. That being said, for example, this object is still taller than this object in the foreground, but maybe if it was placed in the foreground, its width would be a lot wider than this one. So the other thing we're going to be keeping in mind is we're going to be looking at how objects can be broken down into basic geometric shapes. This is an example, and this kind of gets into the discussion of perspective. because loosely understanding that this side of the object is, if you were to draw an imaginary line, it would be at an angle in a similar way to this box being at an angle. So just because it's a rounded object doesn't mean it's not kind of facing an angle. If you think about it, you could visualize any object inside of a rectangular prism like this, or a cube. So that's important to know when you're when you're basically breaking down the shapes. Now you might think, okay, this is a long time to work on something like this, but it's actually more complex than you think. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind when you're going about your still life drawing is the negative space. So the negative space being the space that's around the objects. The objects that are in your still life in the foreground, those are the positive shapes, and the ones that are in the background and the spaces in the background are the negative shapes. So this is kind of a really quick analysis of that. So we're going to get rid of that. Now, oh wait, this is the one I wanted to show you first. Okay, wait, let's increase the scale of this. There's a lot to go over for this assignment because it covers a lot. And so this is kind of an example of breaking down these ellipses. And an ellipse is an organic shape that you can break down. Cups and glasses and jars and anything rounded can be broken down into ellipses. If you notice, there's kind of these central axis lines and these horizontal axis lines. I want you to leave all those when you're finished with your drawing. Now, let's see. Wait, no, let's bring this down here. I'm going to bring this up. Okay, so sighting is something that, there's a lot of different methods, but the method that we're going to be using is in your still life, you're going to have different objects next to each other. And I want you to take one of the smaller to medium items, and I want you to use it as a unit of measurement. And a unit of measurement is, in essence, giving you this kind of way to compare all of the objects to each other and create a drawing that has accurate proportion. So if this is your unit of measurement, what you do is with your hand, you take your pencil and hold it erect out. And I give you a tutorial that goes over this with figure drawing, but it also will help you for still life drawing. So you hold your arm erect, and then you've got your pencil out, and you say to yourself, okay, this apple, the height of this apple, so you're saying that this apple starts at the top of the pencil and ends about right here, so you can make a mark on the pencil, or you can remember that where it ends on the pencil, and then that's your unit of measurement. So then in order to understand how tall this bottle is in comparison to this apple, you then make a height right here that is the equivalent to this height. So in this example, this bottle is 3 1/4 apples tall. And this isn't 100% exact, but it gives you a kind of criteria. And then you can also measure, you can turn the pencil on its side and measure the width as well. So if the width of the apple is your unit of measurement, you can see how much wider this bottle is to the apple, and it looks like the bottle is a little bit wider. What this does is it helps get you out of this kind of automatic frame of mind that says, I know the size of these objects, because a lot of times once you measure, you realize that the object is maybe larger or smaller than you thought it was in comparison to the other objects. And that's because, again, our brains can comprehend a lot of different information, and it's hard to really focus in and solidify what we're looking at. So here's another example. Let's increase the scale of this to see putting something on its side to compare the width to the height, and also the axis of an object, and also the angles, comparing the angles. So that's going to be important. So you hold your pencil up to compare an angle. We'll go into that a little more. Whoops. And then this is, we're going to put this above. This is another good example where you can see, you know, you can kind of map out the whole space. If you were to put kind of wrapping paper around it or kind of wrap it, you'd see about the whole space. And then you can kind of map out the angles, and then eventually you're going to map out the values. Now, final kind of lecture part of this before I do a demo for you is ellipses. Ellipses are a huge part of learning how to draw well, because that, I would have to say, ellipses are bottom line the thing that people draw the most inaccurate when they're getting to fine-tune their drawings or when they're beginning drawing. Now, if this is our eye level right here, then you know, if we were looking straight on at a glass, that's how the ellipse would appear. Now, as that glass goes further and further above us, we're seeing the bottom of the ellipse more, and as it goes underneath the eye level, we're seeing, you know, we're able to see the top of the ellipse. And eventually, if you're kind of standing over an ellipse or a cup, you're going to see almost a sphere. Now, I notice that a lot of people, when they start drawing ellipses, instead of this kind of, you know, rounded shape, I see a lot of that, or kind of that. And I also see when they're looking, if you're looking at a cup kind of like this, like, you know, kind of straight on, I see a lot of people go like this instead of showing the smaller amount, which is more accurate when you're looking straight onto a cup. And the way to understand how big your ellipse is to measure this, the distance from here to here. So let's move on to our drawing. So I'm going to increase the scale of my canvas size just for the purposes of this demo. So we're going to increase the width. Okay, so we have a nice little section here to sketch. Now I am just going to, give me one moment, I gotta get up a little darker here. Get over to the brush. Let's get over to brush types. Okay, so we are going to just give this a nice gestural treatment to start with. I'm going to move my history and layers over here so I have some nice room to work with. Now, this is where you really just want to be loose and not worry so much about the proportions. We're just getting the gesture down, and we have plenty of time to clean it up as we go. So we're going to get this, we're just going to get this kind of, okay. You know, we're going to get this down, this basic, and I am getting in there and drawing some vertical access lines. I'm, you know, playing around with that a little bit because that even helps me whilst doing a gesture, but I'm really just keeping things loose and getting a start to this drawing. And I'm not worrying about contours, I'm just worrying about getting kind of the basic essence of where these objects are. And as I keep going along, I can kind of keep altering things and kind of just adding a little bit here and there. Okay, you know, noticing some things, and I can kind of keep playing with it. And again, I have plenty of time to go in there and edit and erase, and we are allowed to erase here for this assignment. I'm not worrying about shading. I'm just worrying about the gesture right now. So I'm getting that basic gesture in. Basic shapes. Okay. So, that's a pretty good start. Now, I'm going to go to my eraser tool. I'm going to make it a lot smaller. Maybe about, yeah. And I'm going to start. So I've got my nice start here. Oh, even before I go to my eraser tool. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start really kind of putting these vertical axis lines in. And I'm also going to start kind of holding up my pencil to my still life and checking this angle, for example. Okay, it's about, and the cool thing is you can compare angles to hands of the clock. So this angle, and then we're going to do 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11. This is pretty approximate, so bear with here. But this angle, I would say, is about in the 2 zone. So that helps me when I'm visualizing this angle and trying to translate that, because I'm not using rulers, I'm not using linear perspective. And then this angle is in the 10 o'clock range. And so I'm playing with those angles, and I'm imagining that angle goes all the way through. Okay. Then I'm going to be kind of starting with my ellipses and looking at the proportions of the ellipses. Even the cup, or the saucer, is an ellipse. All right. So now I'm going to do a little cleaning up just to kind of give myself a little room, a little more information. Okay, so I've erased some of the extraneous lines for the purposes of measuring this, but I'm going back to looking at my ellipses and remembering that ellipse scale and saying, okay, this shape is above my eye line. So I'm going to be seeing, I'm not going to be seeing it like it's looking below me, like I'm seeing the top of it. I'm going to be seeing it, on it, just kind of almost the bottom of it. So I'm thinking about that. I'm a little unsure of the measurements from here to here. So I'm going to create a unit of measurement. And as you can see here to here, I'm creating my teacup is going to be my unit of measurement. I'm pretty sure, and I'm doing all this sketching, so I'm not using any kind of digital lines, or I'm sorry, not digital. I am using digital. I'm sketching digitally, but I'm not using rulers. I'm sketching still. So, and sometimes you need to turn your page, you need to turn your page on the side in order to kind of draw a straight line in the middle, like draw a vertical axis line, or because sometimes it's hard to do that kind of straight up and down. So don't be afraid to kind of move that around to get those lines. Now, so if this is my unit of measurement, when I hold, I'm holding up my pencil here to see that, how many does this go up? So it goes up, it's 1, 2, 3, and almost 4. So 1 is about 2, 3. So So it's 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then almost 4. So it actually goes up, and let's see, it's like, okay, so then that means if this is the scale of my teacup, that means this is a lot taller than I have it. So that is an exact reason why measurement is important. In my mind, I thought this was a lot shorter than it is. So this is, and I have the ellipse at the teacup too high. So that's another problem. So these are, I've been drawing for quite a long time, and this is going to happen. So I have to go back. I realize my ellipse is too tall, so that's going to change my unit of measurement. So if that is my unit of measurement, approximately here, here, and about here. Now, if this is my unit of measurement, if you notice, this second unit of measurement of the teacup pretty much determines the top of this vase. So if I was to make an imaginary line between there, I would see that that vase ends about there. Now, in terms of width, if you're drawing the width of your if you're using this as a unit of measurement, you can turn it on its side and check, how many teacups wide is this whole still life. So that's, and then how many teacups wide is it until the edge of this. So those are things to keep in mind when doing this. Now, so again, you're checking, and you check those angles against the measurement of a clock, and check the ellipses. You measure how tall it is from here to here on an ellipse, and you don't want to end up with those sharp angles for an ellipse. It's rather, a subtle. So let me get back into this one, because I had so I barely see any of this ellipse because it's just about to that eye level, or horizon line is another way. So that is kind of the shape of my ellipse, and where does this bottle land in relationship to the teacup? And it's actually more like here. I need to get my old steady eraser here, bring this in a little bit, because that was too far. I had it too far in the middle. It's actually even further over than I had it. So it's a constant kind of editing process. And we all, it doesn't matter how many years we've been drawing, have to do this. It's not like all of a sudden, you just have the gift of drawing and you don't have to work at all. No, you have to work at it. You have to constantly check if you want to make an accurate drawing. Okay, and so finally you just want to really, the best you can, create, leave the vertical axis lines, leave the measurement lines, showing the process of trying to break down this still life into discernible elements through all of these processes. And then after the critique for this assignment, we're going to fine-tune them for next week. So I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing your drawings.